That kind of reminds me of there's a lot of people when they have come across someone who's lost a loved one, they'll say, oh, they're looking down from heaven at you now and they're so proud of you or whatever. That to me doesn't seem like it would be right, because if people in heaven can look down and see what's going on earth, they would be sad, I think.
Right.
What do you think about the argument that that's what the cloud of witnesses is talking about? I've heard that from John Piper. I find it curious.
The idea that those who have gone on, our loved ones who have passed away, are looking down on us, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think they're there, and we're here, and that's done. What he's referring to in Hebrews was 11:12, where it talks about a cloud of witnesses. I don't think that's...
I always thought that was their immediate social circles. Like people, I mean, society's watching them. The church is watching them. Their communities are watching them. But I've heard the Ask Pastor John show say that that's actually the people above watching you.
Yeah, and I'm hesitant to disagree with John Piper, but...
Oh,
Can't fully respect that, man.
it's in reference to the Hall of Fame of
Right.
heroes, though, which are clearly dead by the time this is written. I don't know about looking down. I'm not going to say they can. I do think that if they can, their understanding will be perfected and better, that they see things through the eyes of God's plan, salvation history. Here's a good point, right? When Jesus was dying on the cross, the people that were brave enough to stay around were looking at the cross going, this is terrible, like this dude's done. But I think heaven was looking down going, this is awesome. I mean, I don't think Jesus was necessarily feeling that, but I do think that there was, in heaven could have that perspective of what was really happening, whereas those that were on earth couldn't. And so I think there's a chance that those that go to heaven could look at earth and see things as they're really happening. I don't know that we see things as they're really happening because we're so confined to our six senses. It's hard to live that spiritual life, man. I mean, it's hard for me. Maybe y'all probably a lot better than I am. I mean, I'm so, living paycheck to paycheck, paying bills, worrying about my daughter. She comes home with these crazy questions from school, and like it's hard for me to have God's perspective on everything. But maybe, just maybe, when we die, we get that. And so it changes how we look at the world. I don't know. That's not a definitive answer. That's a good political way of dancing around it. But
We brought up earlier, Jesus will have the scars in heaven, correct? So there are those in heaven that we will be in heaven without some loved one. We brought that up earlier. Will we have knowledge of them? I think we will, because it's very sad from our perspective, and it certainly is objectively sad when people choose to reject God. But ultimately, a good and fair judgment is delivered. When Jesus died on the cross, it was good and merciful towards us, but towards him, it was not good. It was the ultimate act of injustice. And yet that will be presented to us in heaven, that Jesus still has the markings of that, and that we'll be aware of that. We will be aware and reminded of the greatest injustice in human history. To quote R.C. Sproul, people ask why do good things or bad things happen to good people. He said that only happened once, and the man volunteered, referring to Jesus. And so we will have that sort of perspective. And if we can maintain paradise while seeing the scars of our risen Lord, who suffered in the most inhumane, unjustified death in human history, then I think we can be aware of hardships our loved ones have on earth. I don't know if we're watching down, but if we're not, it's not because we can't handle it there. And of judgments that may be painful to some extent, it's redeemed. We have the perspective, a redeemed, glorified, perfected perspective.
Well, and here's my struggle, right, theologically, with him looking down, is when does that line get crossed into necromancy, loving the dead? When does that line get crossed into idolatry, right? When you worry or you think someone's looking down so much that they can affect you, or that you, I mean, it's a struggle, right, to have this like, well, maybe they could, but I mean, are we really supposed to dwell on those things? Are we supposed to seek those things out? That's like, well, I mean, okay, let's go to a medium then, and let's talk to Aunt whoever, so-and-so. And, I mean, so I think it's a good discussion. We need to have a good theology of the dead. I think we need to have a good theology of heaven. I think we need to have a grounded theology of the thin veil between, because I do think it's thin. I don't think that heaven is way, I think heaven greatly affects us. I don't know that it's our loved ones. But I think we also need to be grounded in, but you can take stuff too far where it falls into necromancy and idolatry. And I mean, you know, I've had family members that have lost loved ones, and the things they do, I'm like, you need inner healing for this. I haven't told them that, it's not my place, they came to me. But you know, it's like, you're grieving in an unhealthy way. That's not, God did not mean you to stay in this place. And so I don't know, it's a fine line.
In regards to the verse about the cloud of witnesses, like I said, not to disagree with Pastor Piper, but the whole context of the book, you know, like we talked about, if you want to understand a Bible verse, you got to look at the context.
Yeah.
And it looks to me like the flow of argument in Hebrews is talking about having faith, trusting Jesus. And it's in chapter 10, it's pointing back at the law and the way people did their sacrifices, and how Jesus is the sacrifice. And despite, you know, whatever you're experiencing, you need to stay focused on Jesus. Then it moves into chapter 11, where it's talking about, here's all these people who had faith. And you know, faith is what keeps you going. You trust in Christ. You trust in God. And it goes through this list of all these people who trusted God. And then chapter 12, verse 1 says, therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. I think the point isn't that they are witnessing us, but they are witnesses testifying about the faith, about the trustworthiness of God. So the thing that's being, we're surrounded by such a great body of testimony of people who have witnessed God's faithfulness, and they're saying, you can trust him. So I don't think it's that we're surrounded by people who are witnessing what we're doing, that they're witnesses who are testifying to us about God. Make sense? I think that's
Yeah,
where that
it does.
is going. So, there we go.